They tried to drown her during training, laughing as they forced her under, convinced she'd panic, cough, or break. But Lieutenant Tessa Ward didn't flinch. When the water sealed over her, when her lungs screamed for oxygen, she didn't thrash. She focused. She slowed her heartbeat, followed the bubbles drifting upward, and waited. Navy SEALs don't hold their breath just to live. They do it to outlast. When she finally emerged, the laughter stopped. They were the ones breathless now. Before we reveal how long she stayed submerged, and the exact second the stopwatch froze their smirks, leave a comment telling us where you're tuning in from. Tap that subscribe button with notifications on, and stay close. Because this story isn't really about drowning. It's about endurance. About what happens when a SEAL refuses to surface until she decides it's time. The sun slammed against the dive assessment facility like it had unfinished business. Mid-morning glare bounced off steel rails, slick tile, and the glass dome arching above the indoor pool. The air felt thick, dense enough to taste before your boots even hit the deck. Lieutenant Tessa Ward moved like it didn't touch her. Late 30s, sleeves rolled exactly to regulation, black compression top hugging ribs tighter than before, hair pinned back with precision. Clipboard in hand. On her chest, a white armband stitched in navy blue letters. MedWatch Respiratory Limitation. That was the first thing anyone noticed. The second was the sound. Soft, almost lost beneath the hum of filters. A faint wheeze, mechanical and steady, like a slow air leak in a pressurized line. It didn't fit her stride or the calm in her stare, but it followed her, and the men already in the bay caught it. Glances flicked her way, not hostile, not yet, but charged with curiosity that bordered on challenge. They were waiting for her record to confirm what rumor implied, that she didn't belong here anymore. At the far edge of the pool, Chief Mason Dreyer stood with a waterproof folder tucked beneath his arm and a whistle hanging against his chest. Silver hair, square jaw, the expression of a man unimpressed by anything. He didn't offer greeting, just a short nod. "Ward." "Chief." He flipped through a laminated page. "You'll supervise timed descents. 5-minute sets. Watch for control, not speed." She accepted the assignment without hesitation. "Understood." His gaze flicked toward the armband. "You sure you're good to stay on deck?" "I can hold my breath just fine, if that's what you're asking." That pulled the faintest twitch from Chief Dreyer's jaw, not quite a smile, more like the ghost of one, and he moved on without comment. Tessa crossed to the control console beside the oxygen rig and knelt to check the pressure gauge. Behind her, a trainee with a swimmer's build and too much confidence let his voice carry. "Guess they're letting anyone supervise now," he said loud enough for it to echo. "Hope she brought a backup pair of lungs." His friend laughed. Another joined in. Tessa didn't look up, didn't even blink, just glanced at the roster and marked a name. Corporal Brent Ryder. Logged and filed, like oxygen flow under stress. Quietly, precisely, with the promise that numbers would tell the truth later. The air smelled like chlorine and rubber layered over pride. She walked the deck slow and steady, adjusting markers, setting timers, checking buoyancy tags, saying only what duty required. That deliberate quiet started rubbing some of the younger ones raw, especially Ryder, who kept stretching near the pool's edge, flexing like he was back in some college swim meet. He was used to eyes on him and didn't handle indifference well. "Hey, Chief," Ryder called across the water. "What's the rule if the dive supervisor's lungs quit before the clock does?" Dreyer didn't look up, just tapped his clipboard. Tessa kept tightening the lap rope. Or do we just send her to the infirmary with a participation medal? He added, drawing thin laughter that dissolved fast. Tessa didn't react. She finished her task, moved to the data console, and began entering parameters. Behind her, Ryder exaggerated a wheeze, puffing out his cheeks like a cartoon balloon. Two others laughed harder. One muttered, "Ease up, man." Ryder shrugged. "If I had a limp, I'd expect jokes too, just keeping things fair." Dryer's eyes lifted, narrowing. He didn't speak, but the air cooled a few degrees. Rank carried weight, and grudges aged heavy. Tessa pressed the intercom with steady fingers. "All candidates, formation swim, 5-second intervals. Controlled descents only. Surface breathe every third lap. Break rhythm, break protocol." Simple, sharp. Ryder grinned. "Permission to lead, ma'am?" She looked at him for the first time. "Start wherever you like. Just make sure you finish on time." The tone sliced through him colder than the water. The whistle blew. First diver down. Ryder followed second. On his third lap, he broke early, burst up, took a showy gasp. "Guess some of us don't need inhalers." Dryer didn't move. Tessa didn't turn. "It's not air that keeps you alive, Corporal," she said evenly. "It's control." The stillness after that line landed heavier than any shout. Even the techs paused mid-log. Ryder's grin faltered. He tried to laugh again, but found no echo. The drills continued. So did she. No vengeance, no barked orders, just quiet authority that stung sharper than punishment. She'd measured him, and he knew it. By afternoon, the bay had emptied, except for the endurance crew, a handful of Marines running weighted submersion laps. The room smelled of neoprene and disinfectant, the slap of water steady as a metronome. Chief Dryer stood at the far end, talking logistics with another officer. Tessa managed the deck alone, stopwatch steady, every tank pressure logged to the decimal. Her standing order: observe, record, correct, nothing physical. The board had been clear. No dives, not until clearance. "All right," she called evenly. 1-minute submersions, 5-second surface intervals. Weighted belts stay clasped until extraction call. Nods rippled across the water, then movement. Down, up, breathe, repeat, rhythm steady. All except Ryder. He stayed a beat behind, surfacing late, flashing his grin, still showing off. Landon and Sykes copied him, joking between dives, turning discipline into a game. Tessa noticed, but stayed silent, logging times like normal. Then Dryer's radio buzzed. He stepped away, out through the gate, the door sealing behind him. The moment he was gone, Ryder leaned against the ladder, smirk sharpening. Ever wonder what happens when the supervisor fails her own test? Landon chuckled nervously. "Careful, man." Ryder shrugged. "I just want to see if she trusts that medical tag." Before anyone could react, he pushed off, boots skimming tile, closing the gap in a heartbeat. Tessa turned toward the sound, catching only the grin before his hands hit her shoulders. "Let's test that control up close, Commander." He shoved. Water swallowed her whole. The clipboard hit tile, stopwatch clattering under a bench. The room went silent except for the echoing splash fading into stillness. Beneath the surface, Tessa didn't flail. Instinct took command. Breath control, posture, count. But the scar tissue didn't care about training. The pressure slammed her chest like a hammer. Pain blooming sharp behind her sternum. Above her, 3 shapes distorted in the rippling light. their laughter bubbling through the surface as they pretended to guide her up while keeping her pinned below just long enough to call it horseplay. Her lungs screamed. She tried to rise slowly, exhaling to control the burn, but her vision tunneled, black edging the corners. Then someone's grip slipped. A splash broke the tension, and the resistance vanished. She shot upward, one knee hitting the ladder, gasping, blood and water erupting together. The violent cough echoed off tile. "Easy, easy," Landon shouted, panic cutting his voice. "Ryder, she slipped." Ryder stepped back, palms raised, words stumbling over guilt. "I didn't. She just—" Tessa folded forward, thin crimson lines trailing down her wrist into the pool. "Commander Ward," a medic yelled, sprinting from the observation bay as Chief Dryer re-entered, the emergency horn blaring. Within seconds, she was on deck, wrapped in towels, mask pressed to her face, vitals cuff tightening. "Pulse 114 and dropping," the medic called. Tessa's eyes opened halfway, voice muffled through oxygen. Hold the data." Then she went still. Ryder froze where he stood, watching as they wheeled her toward the corridor, pale and dripping, mask fogged from ragged breaths. No one said the word assault, not yet, but Dryer's stare locked on him like a verdict written in silence. Everyone in that room knew what they'd seen. The sound of water gave way to machines, steady beeps, the low hiss of purified air. Naval Medical Wing 3 was never truly quiet. Monitors pulsed green and amber, pumps clicked, vents exhaled rhythmically through the sealed observation bay. Lieutenant Tessa Ward lay propped against white sheets, sensors tracing from her ribs to a saturation monitor, IV line dripping above. Her chart read, exertional hypoxia, 84% O2 at rest. Across from her, Dr. Elias Corin, late 50s, former Navy pulmonologist with half-moon glasses and a tone that sanded arrogance smooth, adjusted a spirometer mouthpiece without glancing up. "You took water deeper than your throat," he muttered. She pushed herself upright. "Not enough to drown." Corin snorted. "Only reason you're not intubated is your body still remembers how to slow down before panic kicks in. That's instinct, not immunity." She stayed quiet. "Drop below 80% again, and it's medical suspension. You understand?" "I know." He handed her the spirometer. "Full volume, blow." She exhaled, steady for 3 seconds before faltering. The device beeped. Corin read the data. "Borderline. Another minute under and you'd have aspirated blood." Noted. "What happened wasn't an accident," he said evenly. "You could press charges or pull your evaluation, sit this rotation out. No one would blame you." She unclipped the oximeter from her finger. "That would teach the wrong lesson." "Which is?" "That control stops mattering when someone takes it from you." He sighed. "So what's your plan? Retaliation?" She met his eyes, calm, deliberate. "A demonstration." Corin fetched a form from a cabinet and passed it to her. "Sign this waiver if you're staying. It waives liability and acknowledges pulmonary risk." She signed without hesitation. "Make an extra copy for command." He scanned the signature. "You're really going to test those lungs again this week?" She stood, steadying herself. "I'm not testing them. I'm proving what they've already survived." His brow lifted. "And if he tries again? Then I'll stay vertical." "You sure?" She clipped her watch back on. "He won't be the one surfacing." Her boots echoed down the sterile hallway as she left the ward, the smell of antiseptic fading behind her. For a moment, she wasn't in San Diego anymore. She was back in Kandahar, Crushed beneath 200 pounds of rubble, a lung collapsed, ribs shattered. The corpsman had yelled for her to stop talking, to let them handle it. But the Taliban were 50 meters out, and her team didn't know the route was blown. So she'd keyed the radio with a broken hand and whispered grid coordinates through a punctured lung. 38% capacity, no morphine, just discipline. Her SEAL officer's voice had cracked through static. Control isn't silence, Ward. It's command. She'd stayed conscious the entire medevac, directing her own extraction. The medics later said most people blacked out from that pain. She'd just looked at them like they'd missed the lesson. Passing out was optional, and she'd made a different choice. That evening, Chief Dreyer met her outside the annex briefing room, low voices filling the corridor. Command already had Ryder's version. She slipped. Just an accident. Dreyer handed her a sealed envelope. Tomorrow's updated eval roster. They moved the lung capacity trial forward. Full candidate pool. She opened it, scanning. Ryder's name and hers. Dreyer's tone dropped. Don't turn this into revenge. She closed the folder. It's not. Then what? She met his eyes, steady and sharp. Timing. By morning, the dive annex pulsed with rumor. She blacked out. No way, man, she coded. Ryder pulled her out, saved her. None of it true. But truth doesn't matter when silence starts to bite. Lieutenant Tessa Ward walked the back corridor toward the training bay. Uniform crisp, compression vest zipped high beneath the outer layer. No limp, no cough, no bandages, just a faint bruise on her wrist where the IV had been. Conversations halted as she passed. Some recruits straightened, others avoided her eyes. Ryder leaned by the protein lockers, grin wide enough to share. Heard I'm getting a medal next, he said loudly. Life-saving rescue during breath control drills. One trainee chuckled. The rest stayed quiet. Across the compound, command moved fast. A notice hit the board at 600. Directive 9B. Pulmonary discipline evaluation. All candidates mandatory. Date, 700 tomorrow. Location, pool 3. Monitored, yes. Recorded, yes. Objective. Static underwater breath hold under biometric supervision. No explanation given, no name attached, but everyone knew. Inside the prep locker, Chief Dreyer handed briefing cards down the line. He stopped at her. You're on the list. You sure you're cleared? Sign the waiver. Command stamped it this morning. Fast enough? She checked the order. Ryder 3rd, her 7th. It's fine. Dreyer frowned. If he pulls anything, you call it before it happens. He won't. You can't know that. I do. He thinks he's already won. Later, in the hallway outside the pool, Ryder leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Try not to drown twice in 1 week, Commander. She didn't slow. Try not to blink when I don't. He tilted his head. They bring in a medic? She paused just long enough to look over her shoulder. They won't need one for me. Then kept walking, each breath already measured, pulse already lowering, because this wasn't about proving survival anymore. It was about showing exactly how long they'd underestimated her control. That night, after lights out, she returned to Pool 3 alone. The place glowed with blue LED reflections stretching across steel and glass. Empty benches, cold air, quiet hum of filtration. She checked every camera angle twice, synced the biometric sensors, tested the emergency cutoff. Then she sat at the edge, boots off, toes brushing the surface. Cold, clean, merciless. She closed her eyes, rehearsing not the breath hold itself, but the aftermath. The moment Ryder would look at the timer and understand he'd been wrong. Not about her lungs, About her will? She dried her feet, stood, and left without looking back. At 0650, the evaluation bay was silent. No jokes, no chatter, no swagger. Just the faint hum of monitors syncing with waterproof trackers and the steady churn of the dehumidifier. Blue lights glowed under the pool, overhead fluorescents dimmed to silver haze. Stainless benches lined the edge, each tag reading name, rank, BPM, last breath hold record. Lieutenant Tessa Ward sat at Station 7, arms folded, eyes half-lidded. Her monitor blinked steady, 43 BPM, lower than anyone else in the room. She hadn't spoken once. Dreyer stood by the far wall beside the med team and a silent recording unit. Camera already rolling. Petty Officer Lewin briefed them. Static submersion, no weights. Minimum pass 2 minutes, optional cap 6. System auto flags at 6:30. You surface when you want or when your body forces it. Pass with control, fail with panic. Understood? Nods all around. Ryder went third, stepping forward with mock composure, goggles snapping into place. He glanced at her long enough for the smirk to land, then dove. Stopwatch ticking. 1 minute, smooth. 2, steady. At 2:18, he surfaced hard, slapped the tile, exhaled sharp. Light applause. Not bad, someone muttered. Could have gone longer, Ryder said, catching breath. Didn't want to show off. When Tessa stood, silence followed. No stretching, no words. She just approached the ladder, slid in, and disappeared beneath the surface without a ripple. Monitors spiked to life. Resting pulse 43, O2 at 94%. Stopwatch started. 1 minute, no motion. 2, stillness absolute. 2:30, chest rising faintly, suppressed reflex. 3:45. Lewin glanced toward Dreyer. Dreyer didn't blink. 4 minutes. First burn deep in her chest. Not panic, just the body reminding her what it wanted. But want wasn't need. She'd learned that in too many dark places where surfacing meant dying. Scar tissue stretched tight, ache flaring under ribs. She acknowledged it like weather. There, but irrelevant. Heartbeat dropped to 41, then 40. The room above was frozen. 4:30, vision dimmed at the edges, gray softening into blur. Most divers broke here. The brain ordered oxygen, the body obeyed. She stayed. In Coronado, her instructors used to say the difference between 4 minutes and 6 wasn't lungs. It was the mind's ability to stay awake while dying slow. 5 minutes. Seats creaked. Ryder's smirk vanished. 5:30. Medic prepared a dive mask. Dreyer lifted a hand. Stand down. 6 minutes. Amber light flashed. Still no motion. 6:15. Oxygen reading dropped again, just slightly. Proof she wasn't losing control. She was rewriting it. Heart rate at 39 beats per minute. No distress detected. 6 minutes, 32 seconds. She didn't rise to gasp. She rose to turn. One slow rotation, eyes open, utterly composed. Then her legs flexed, and she pushed off the tile in one clean ascent. She broke the surface soundlessly, exhaling in a slow, measured stream through her nose. The room didn't cheer. It froze. She lifted her goggles, stepped onto the ladder, water streaming down her arms, waiting. Chief Dreyer glanced at the monitor. Breath hold, 6 minutes, 32 seconds. Final oxygen, 88%. Heart rate stable. The silence that followed wasn't awe. It was adjustment, like the room recalibrating what it believed possible. Ryder stood rigid, one hand braced on the bench. How? He began, then couldn't finish. Tessa met his stare. By not wasting breath on fear. She turned to Dreyer. Request permission to observe the remaining candidates. He nodded once. Granted. She sat back, silent as gravity, while others stole glances her way but didn't speak. It wasn't a comeback. It was a masterclass. By Zo743, the last diver surfaced. The tension dissolved into shuffling boots, towels snapping, oxygen tanks hissing as readings uploaded to the cloud. Only one space still held weight. The 6 feet separating Corporal Brent Ryder from Lieutenant Tessa Ward. She was drying her face when he came close, voice low, echoing against wet tile. You set me up. She didn't turn. I followed protocol. You wanted an audience. No, she said quietly. I wanted oxygen. The rest was yours. You made me look weak. She faced him fully now. You did that when you held someone underwater. His jaw worked. It wasn't personal. It wasn't tactical either. She dropped the towel. But it was recorded. His face shifted. Not rage, not regret. Just the dawning truth that the joke had never belonged to him. You think this changes anything? She didn't answer. He reached out, instinctive, trying to reclaim an inch of control, fingers halfway to her arm before she moved. Pivot, grip, hips dropped, momentum reversed. The floor offered no mercy. Ryder hit the water with a sharp slap that echoed down the corridor. He surfaced, coughing, sputtering, blinking water from his eyes. Tessa stood at the edge, motionless. Chief Dryer had seen it all. He walked over slowly, voice calm but edged. Enough! Ryder tried to speak, but Dryer cut him off. I said enough. Tessa extended a hand toward the pool. Ryder hesitated, then took it. She hauled him up in one efficient pull. No theatrics, no humiliation. You'll need control, she said evenly. Next time someone takes your air, remember how this feels. He stared at her, silent, drenched, something hollow where his arrogance had been. Dryer's voice carried across the bay. Training rotation resumes at 0900. No one touches anyone without cause again. Clear? Mutters of, yes, Chief, rippled through the ranks. Ryder turned toward the showers. No one met his eyes. Tessa walked back to the benches. No one moved to block her path. No one had to. Whatever point she'd come to make was now carved into the tile itself. Command Room 2A was built for silence. Bare walls, single table, a flat screen paused on footage. 2 divers submerged. One still, one restless. Chief Mason Dryer stood beside it, arms folded. Opposite him, Lieutenant Tessa Ward sat straight-backed, armband tucked inside her sleeve. No need for labels now. Duty Officer Lieutenant Commander Karen Phelps reviewed the report, pen tapping against a checklist labeled Post-Evaluation Clearance Review. No biometric deviations, she said. No procedural violations. No escalation. Dryer nodded. Vitals steady. No anaerobic threshold breach. No panic. And the incident with Corporal Ryder? Handled without force? Contact initiated by him. Dryer confirmed. Redirection only. Witnessed. Phelps looked at Tessa. You didn't consider pressing charges? No. Why not? Because the oxygen said everything. Silence lingered, clean and heavy. Then Phelps clicked her pen, signed the bottom of the form. Effective immediately. Lieutenant Ward is reinstated without restriction. Compression protocol cleared. No further observation required. She slid the document across. Tessa signed it in one smooth motion. You understand, this makes you eligible for operational re-entry. I understand. Dryer leaned forward slightly, steady as ever. You proved them wrong. Tessa shook her head. No. I proved breathing's optional when calm isn't. The words hung in the air like the final note of a hymn. Phelps raised an eyebrow, closed the folder. Chairs scraped back. Boots echoed on concrete. Then the side door opened. Ryder entered, bandaged wrist, half-zipped uniform, posture stiff. He held a folded acknowledgement form. "Corporal Brent Ryder," Phelps said. "Something to submit?" "Yes, ma'am." He placed the paper on the table, then looked at Tessa and lifted his hand in salute. No words, no excuses, just a gesture of air and silence, returned in kind. She returned the salute. Sharp, quiet, precise. He turned and walked out without another word. Dreyer waited until the door shut, then asked, "You good?" Tessa drew one slow breath through her nose, steady, controlled. "I'm cleared, aren't I?" Dreyer almost smiled. "That you are." The dive annex hadn't changed. Same stretch of tile, same stainless benches, same mirrored surface on pool 3. Chlorine still clung to the air like a uniform you couldn't take off. But the energy had shifted. No one laughed when Lieutenant Tessa Ward entered. No snickers trailed the soft, dry wheeze that rose and faded with colder air. No sideways glances. She moved the deck like she always had. Calm, deliberate, clipboard in one hand, stopwatch dangling from her other thumb. Compression vest still under her uniform. Necessary, but no longer defining. Across the room, recruits adjusted their straps quicker, boots landing cleaner, posture straighter. She didn't mention the change. She didn't have to. Chief Dreyer stood by the wall-mounted timer, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "Drill set?" he asked. "Logged and briefed," she replied. He nodded. She took position near the observation deck. Trainees slipped into the pool. No splashes. On the bench, a recruit whispered, "That's her, the one who didn't surface." His partner shook his head, voice almost reverent. "No." That's when she chose to come up. The stopwatch beeped. First set began. From her post, Tessa watched the diver descend, made no sound, no comment, just marked time, exhaled softly through her nose. Breath still tight but steady, deep enough to trust. At mid-drill, Dreyer's voice came through the intercom. Measured, calm. "Calm under pressure," he said, more reminder than instruction. "That's what keeps you alive." A few glances turned her way. She gave none back, only lifted the stopwatch slightly, thumb resting on the top button. Then one deep inhale. Not to prove anything, but to remind herself. It was never about how long you could hold the air. It was about knowing when to let it go. Would you panic if someone forced you under? Or could you stay calm long enough to make them surface first? Drop your answer in the comments. I read everyone. And if this story reminded you that control isn't strength, it's presence when pressure builds, then hit that like button, tap subscribe with the bell on, and share this video with someone who thinks silence means surrender. Because another mission's already waiting on your screen. Watch that one next, and I'll see you tomorrow.